The restaurant glowed with a quiet kind of luxury, the kind that wrapped itself around people who belonged there and gently reminded everyone else that they did not. Soft music drifted through the air, silverware chimed softly, and waiters moved with practiced calm. Daniel Hart sat alone at a corner table, his tailored suit perfectly pressed, his posture straight from years of boardrooms and negotiations. He was the kind of man servers recognized instantly, the CEO who tipped well, spoke little, and always dined alone. In front of him sat a perfectly cooked steak, steam rising, untouched. Hunger had long stopped meaning appetite to him, it was just another thing to ignore. His phone buzzed with emails he didn't open. The silence inside him was louder than any notification. Then the door opened, letting in a slice of winter air, and a family. They hesitated just inside the entrance, as if unsure whether they were allowed to exist in a place like this. A woman clutched a thin coat around herself, her face pale with exhaustion. A man stood beside her, shoulders slumped, eyes trained on the floor as though expecting rejection before it came. Between them was a small girl, her worn shoes barely touching the ground as she hopped once, twice, trying to shake the cold from her feet. Daniel noticed them without meaning to. He always did. He just never let himself care. The hostess glanced at their clothes, at the child's tangled hair, and something flickered across her face. But she nodded and led them to a table near the door, out of the way, where they wouldn't disturb the comfort of paying guests. Daniel looked back down at his plate, jaw tightening. He told himself it wasn't his concern. It never was. Yet as the family sat, the little girl's laughter broke through the room like a crack in glass. It wasn't loud, just light, honest, unafraid. Daniel froze. That sound reached places in him no success ever had. It reminded him of evenings long ago, of a small apartment, of a child's laugh echoing before everything fell apart. The parents spoke in hushed voices, studying the menu with the careful intensity of people counting coins in their minds. When the waiter arrived, they ordered the cheapest thing, 1 soup, 2 spoons. The little girl didn't complain. She just swung her legs and hummed softly, drawing pictures on the table with her finger. Daniel's chest tightened. He pushed his chair back slightly and raised his hand. When the waiter approached, Daniel's voice came out lower than he expected. "The family by the door," he said. "Put their dinner on my bill. Whatever they want." The waiter blinked, then nodded. When the food arrived, the parents stared as plates filled the table, real meals, steaming and generous. Confusion gave way to disbelief, then to something dangerously close to tears. The mother's hand flew to her mouth. The father stood, scanning the room until his eyes found Daniel. Their gazes met. Daniel gave a small nod, nothing more. The parents whispered hurried thanks, but Daniel looked away, suddenly uncomfortable, as if he had exposed something raw. Across the room, the little girl looked straight at him. Not with gratitude. Not with awe. But with recognition, like she knew him in a way no one ever had. And for the first time that night, Daniel's untouched steak didn't matter at all. The family ate slowly, carefully, as if each bite needed permission to exist. The father broke his bread in half before touching his own plate, sliding the larger piece toward his daughter. The mother noticed and gently pushed it back, shaking her head with a tired smile. Their movements carried the quiet choreography of people who had learned to share scarcity without words. Daniel pretended to focus on his phone, but his attention never truly left them. He watched the way the mother closed her eyes after the first spoonful of soup, relief washing over her face like warmth after a long winter. He watched the father straighten slightly in his chair, dignity returning with every bite. And he watched the child. She didn't eat right away. She studied the room instead, her small face serious, eyes wide and thoughtful. She looked at the lights, the paintings on the walls, the people laughing at nearby tables. Then she looked at Daniel again. This time, she didn't look away. Her gaze lingered, steady and curious, as though she were trying to solve a puzzle only she could see. Daniel shifted in his seat. He wasn't used to being looked at that way. Most people saw his power first, or his money, or the distance he carefully maintained. But the child saw none of that. Her eyes held no fear, no expectation. Just quiet attention. She finally picked up her fork and ate, humming softly between bites. The sound stirred something painful and familiar inside him. He remembered a voice like that once, long ago, someone small who used to hum to fill silences when the lights went out too early. He pushed the memory down, the way he always did. Time passed. Plates emptied. The parents moved slower now, full in a way they hadn't been in a long time. The mother dabbed her mouth with a napkin, eyes shining. She leaned close to her daughter and whispered something. The girl nodded, slipped off her chair, and for a moment Daniel thought she was coming toward him. Instead, the parents stood first. The father hesitated, then turned fully toward Daniel, pressing a hand to his chest in silent thanks. The mother mouthed words Daniel didn't need to hear to understand. Gratitude like that was heavy, it settled in his bones. Daniel nodded once, tight and restrained, already preparing himself for the familiar aftermath, the brief satisfaction, followed by the return of emptiness. He picked up his fork, finally intending to eat. That was when the girl broke free. She moved quickly, small feet whispering against the floor, before her parents could stop her. Daniel looked up just as she reached his table. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She simply climbed onto the empty chair across from him, as if she belonged there. From her pocket, she pulled out a folded napkin, creased and smoothed with care. She placed it gently beside his plate, right next to the steak he still hadn't touched. Her fingers lingered for a moment, brushing the edge of the table, then she looked up at him. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, something old, unspoken, and impossibly tender. Daniel's breath caught, though he didn't know why. Before he could say a word, the girl slid off the chair and ran back to her parents, who were already apologizing with panicked expressions. They left quickly after that, the door closing softly behind them, letting the cold rush back in. Daniel stared at the napkin, heart pounding, afraid to open it. Afraid that whatever waited inside already knew him better than he knew himself, Daniel sat frozen long after the door closed behind the family. The hum of the restaurant returned slowly, the clink of glasses, a laugh from a distant table, the soft scrape of chairs being pulled in. Yet everything felt far away, as if he were underwater. His eyes remained fixed on the folded napkin beside his plate. It looked harmless, ordinary. And still, his hands would not move. Finally, with a breath that trembled more than he expected, he unfolded it. Inside was a drawing done in uneven lines, clearly made by a child's careful effort. A tall man stood alone, shoulders slightly slumped, eyes shaded dark. He recognized himself instantly, not his face, but the way the figure leaned, as if carrying an invisible weight. Beside the man was a small girl holding his hand. Above them were 3 words, written slowly, deliberately, each letter imperfect but certain. "You found me." The room vanished. Daniel's chest tightened so sharply it hurt. His vision blurred, and for a moment he thought he might be sick. Those words weren't just kindness. They weren't random. They reached straight into a place he had sealed off years ago, the memory of a little sister with messy hair and brave eyes, taken away when promises were made that never came true. He had spent a lifetime building power to outrun that failure, to bury it under success and silence. And yet here it was. Found again by a stranger's child. A tear slipped free before he could stop it, landing on the napkin and darkening the paper. Then another followed. Daniel Hart, the man who never broke in meetings, who negotiated without mercy, sat alone at a table and cried quietly into his hands. Not from sadness alone, but from recognition. From the unbearable gentleness of being seen without armor. When he finally stood to leave, he folded the napkin carefully and slipped it into his wallet, pressing it flat as though it were something sacred. Outside, the night air was sharp, but it felt cleaner in his lungs. He paused on the sidewalk, watching people pass, faces he would once have ignored. That night didn't change his world all at once. But it cracked something open. In the weeks that followed, Daniel began to stop, to listen. He learned names. He sat instead of standing above. He gave not just money, but time. Sometimes, late at night, he took out the napkin and traced the crooked letters with his thumb. And in the quiet, he no longer felt quite so lost, because a child had left behind proof that even the loneliest hearts can still be found.